It's a 26-page ruling issued by judges from UK's Privy Council, and in it a full explanation as to why they dismissed Michael Mizick's Court of Appeal application in relation to the SIPT investigations. Pay up or lock up, the two options given to 28 Dominican men who appeared before a Providenciales magistrate's court today to answer to charges of poaching in Turks and Caicos waters. Today, those men testified in court that they did not know they were in TCI waters, but as stated by the magistrate's court judge, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And all across Providenciales, residents telling us similar stories, talking to us about the severe flooding they've experienced outside of their business places and their homes. We're here at Boogaloo's Conch Crawl in Five Keys, a popular restaurant establishment. Tide is usually so low that restaurant goers can actually sit out to shore. But this morning, tide is so high that we can't even walk out there, leaving crews to clean up the mess. Well, I'm standing inside of the apartment complex where residents say it all started. A fire engulfing this entire property and spreading to the neighboring buildings. This morning, the details of that fire still unknown, but one thing for certain, over a dozen families waking up homeless after a fire ravaged through this community on Thursday afternoon. Now, police say on July 20th, the Marine Branch responded to a call in the Turtle Cove Marina area and found a Go Fast boat. Police also discovered Pinder and Rosny Jean Charles hiding in the bushes. The two men were picked up by police authorities and later handed over to immigration. Now, around 8 p.m. that night, immigration returned to the scene and would find three women hiding in the bushes. Those three women tried to get away from police authorities but were later captured. Now, the former premier and his co-defendants face several charges, including conspiracy to accept bribes while in public office, conspiracy to defraud, as well as money laundering charges. Now, for a full look at that ruling, you can log on to UK Privy Council's website at www.jcpc.uk. For now, reporting for PTV Newswatch, I'm Ange Toussaint. Now, Ferguson says one of the best ways to protect your properties is to install a security camera. Pay up or lock up, the two options given to 28 Dominican men who appeared before a Providenciales magistrate's court today to answer to charges of poaching in Turks and Caicos waters. Today, those men testified in court that they did not know they were in TCI waters, but as stated by the magistrate's court judge, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Judge Clifton Warner ordered each of the 28 poachers to pay a fine of $5,400 or face 6 months imprisonment for fishing illegally in Turks and Caicos waters. Today, all of the men pled guilty to 8 charges, including the possession of crawfish during the closed season, parrotfish, and the possession of spear guns. Those charges stemming from a July 23rd arrest where officers caught the men at well breakers just 7 miles off South Bush Key. The men were caught with more than 2,000 pounds of lobster, parrotfish, and illegal fishing devices. Paul Dickinson, Senior Conservation Officer for the Department of Environment and Maritime Affairs, was content with the verdict.
I'm pleased with the verdict. We put a lot of hard work into it, dedication, in apprehending the individuals.
Officers found a total of 1,462 pounds of lobster valued at $7,500, 69 egg-bearing lobsters, and 485 pounds of parrotfish. Despite the evidence, the man who originally pled not guilty told the judge through a translator that they did not know they were in TCI waters, let alone were fishing illegally. They told the judge that they were betrayed and lied to by their captain, whom they assumed had dropped them off at the Puerto Plata Dominican banks, and when they were caught, testified that they thought they were being chased by drug traffickers, and that's why they ran.
And it's just about 95% of the cases, it's the same story.
Dickinson admitted to media that had they caught the mothership, the outcome may have been different for the 28 poachers. Now, after the court hearing, the men were transferred to the South Dock Detention Center. Many of them were still desperately trying to make those calls to reach family members and see if they can raise that money and avoid prison time. For now, reporting for PTV Newswatch here at the Providenciales Magistrates Courthouse, I'm Ange Toussaint. Burn it, take it back, throw it away. Whatever you do, we don't want it. Statements expressed by residents who attended Monday night's town hall meeting as they said down with the proposed immigration and Turks and Caicos Island status bill.
I'm asking you to take this bill back to the drawing board.
This bill
come hell or high water, have to be buried. It appears that for whatever reason, the government seems to have some obligation to persons that are not Turks and Caicos Islanders.
It's not the government policies that doesn't work. It's the people that work in government offices who does the compliance.
Residents vehemently rejected the proposed immigration and Turks and Caicos Islander status bills 2015 because they say it disenfranchises indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders. Passionate and strident statements from residents who say the bill would widen the franchise by providing permanent status and citizenship to more foreign nationals.
Being in a country where indigenous Turks and Caicos Islanders are outnumbered on every hand, you must do everything possible to protect your people.
The new immigration bill makes provision for children of PRC holders to obtain automatic citizenship status for children who arrived in the TCI before they turned 7, and freelance work permits for children who fail to meet the 10-year residency requirements, provisions which residents were not too keen on.
Right now we have Turks and Caicos Islanders in droves seeking employment, and you're going to come up with a freelancer's work permit.
The bill also proposes automatic grant of status to children born outside of the country to Turks and Caicos Island parents, though the minister said the provision is meant to protect TCI ancestry for locals who have children outside of the TCI. Residents also rejected that notion.
I myself am like some of the other people whose children are born abroad. They can inherit status here, but should they have status abroad, their kids do not qualify. Something is wrong with that, and we ask you to fix it or completely do not proceed with this bill.
Now, residents also wanted to know whether their suggestions would really be taken into consideration when the House meets on September 14th. But already last night's meeting sets the precedent for what is likely to be a very contentious debate on immigration. Reporting for PTV Newswatch here at the Gustavo Sightborn Sports Complex, I'm Ange Toussaint. Deputy Premier and Minister of Education Honorable Akira Mizik is the latest government minister to challenge the election's claims and objections process. Honorable Mizik was one of over a dozen people who turned out to the Providenciales claims and objections hearing this morning. Mizik was unable to make objections before the elections office for District 5 because she was not registered in that constituency.
My argument today was that the rules of natural justice should apply. As an adjudicator, the supervisor of elections has an overriding objective to ensure that the list is correct.
Last week, a similar occurrence during hearings in North and Middle Caicos with Border Control Minister Honorable Donahue Gardner, who was unable to make claims and objections in that constituency because he is not registered in that district. Today, Mizik said she will be appealing this process.
And I believe that justice will prevail in this matter.
Mizik said she has received proper information from the supervisor of elections and hopes to file her appeal by Thursday. Ezra Taylor, who contested the ED5 district unsuccessfully against Honorable Mizik during the 2012 general elections, raised several objections before the supervisor of elections today.
I find it quite perplexing because we had some of the same issues with the same persons in the previous election. And this time around, we're going to get the adjudicator involved so we could get a really good legal definition of where a person spends most of their time and where they're resident, because that seems to be the salient point.
Honorable Charlene Cartwright Robinson, who was in attendance this morning, called the decision by the supervisor of elections against the deputy premier another victory for the PDM party.
And because she's not living and resident in Leeward and Long Bay, she could not stand as an objector this morning. So all of those objections were as well thrown out. So once again, it's a victory for the People's Democratic Movement.
Meanwhile, the supervisor of elections, Dudley Lewis, said nearly 800 claims and objections have been filed with the elections office since the publication of the preliminary electors list. The election supervisor says persons who provide false information can be fined up to $1,000 or face 6 months imprisonment. Hearings for Providenciales continue tomorrow, Thursday, and for South Caicos on Monday. Well, I'm standing inside of the apartment complex where residents say it all started. A fire engulfing this entire property and spreading to the neighboring buildings. This morning, the details of that fire still unknown, but one thing for certain, over a dozen families waking up homeless after a fire ravaged through this community on Thursday afternoon. Charred rubble is all that's left of the homes in this Five Keys community, engulfed by ravaging flames late Thursday afternoon. The blaze traveling from one home to the next, destroying some 14 homes in this densely populated community. Eloise Mizik, the proprietor of the complex, says she lost everything.
I don't get nothing here. We do any bed, pot, stove, anything going. I don't get nothing. Any good I get.
Mizik, who resided in her home with 3 children, says that most of the residents who live behind the Enid Capron Primary School is now homeless.
I sleep last night by somebody here because this morning one friend come take me, bid me, put clothes on me, give me something to drink.
Eyewitnesses say the fire occurred sometime after 3 p.m. Most of the tenants were at work. A few did manage to salvage some mattresses and clothes, others not so lucky. This morning, Pastor Steve Cornwell of the Five Keys Seventh-day Adventist Church visited the community, talked, and prayed with the tenants.
We are tremendously moved with great sorrow, and we are doing all that we can.
With the stench of the fire still fresh, smoke still rising from the ashes, many return to view the damage, many of them with nowhere to go.
My old place, everything burnt up, my bed.
Their hope lies in the promise of assistance from groups like ADRA, the Red Cross, which provided clothes and toiletries on Thursday night, and their calls to government for assistance. And while many residents and witnesses in this area say that arson was the cause behind this fire, we are still waiting on a report from the fire department to ascertain the true nature of this fire that sparked here on Thursday afternoon. For now, residents in this community say they are relying on the help of friends, family, and the assistance of community groups to get their basic necessities. For now, reporting for PTV News Watch here in Five Keys, I'm Ange Toussaint. A box of cereal, $7.99. A gallon of MacArthur milk, $9.99. A gallon of gas, $6.59. The cost of living in the Turks and Caicos Islands, very expensive. Luxury hotels and high-priced condos for the rich and famous. For residents, though, the cost of living can take away from the joys of being on a tropical island. From high-priced grocery to increased electricity costs, there is a growing anxiety about the soaring cost of living in the TCI.
I think the cost of living here is pretty high.
Even the rent of apartments is high. Buy groceries is very expensive. Everything is very expensive also. Fuel is very expensive.
With minimum wage at $5.50, residents say they're making less and spending more.
You're working for a person, they want to pay you very, very little. But when you go in the store, you hardly can buy food, hardly can buy groceries.
Electricity is high, food is high, gas is high. Barely making ends meet.
On Facebook, viewers said we need cost control and the cost of living constantly rising while wages remain constant. And they're right. A gallon of gas these days will run anywhere from $6.20 to $6.59 on Provo and $6.95 on North Caicos. Residents say their electricity bills nearly doubled this month.
The salaries are not going up, but the bills and stuff is going up.
And we went grocery shopping today. Just your breadbasket items, some cereal, gonna need milk with that, a box of eggs, butter, chicken, can't forget the ground beef, and before you know it, it's $91.25. Lucky for us, it was just a mock. But for residents, high prices are the real deal. At IGA, where residents constantly complain of high prices, General Manager Ken Burns speaks up.
IGA buys different quality products in many respects, in produce and in meat. We try to offer the consumer a choice.
Burns says while just about every Caribbean country is dealing with duty and import taxation, there are other factors that drive costs.
Let me say, first of all, we don't move a price unless cost moves to us from our suppliers, whether from the UK or from the US or wherever we might purchase it from. Unfortunately, lately, cost has gone up on many commodities. Beef is one of them, where there's a drought in California right now that's putting pressure on the number of beef cows. Pork, there's been a disease that has killed over 2 million pigs in the U.S., and it'll probably be fall, winter before that recovers.
Past and current governments have opted not to implement price control regulation in fear of stifling economic growth and difficulties with policing. Premier Rufus Ewing has publicly stated that his government is not considering price control, while Minister of Finance Honorable Washington Mizik contends that it's hard to police. Well, this afternoon, police are investigating a series of crimes which occurred over the weekend in Providence Valleys. One of those incidents leaving a 24-year-old man dead and another recovering after being shot. Hello, everyone. I'm Ange Toussaint, and this is News Watch. That shooting leaving families devastated on Father's Day morning. Here's our Tamara Delaney with the latest on that story. Tamara, what can you tell us about that shooting? Thanks, Tamara. And once again, anyone with information is asked to contact police on 911 or Crime Stoppers anonymously on 1-800-8477. Well, David Smith's legal battles are far from over. The Attorney General's office issuing a statement last week saying that David Smith owes more than $20 million to victims of his Ponzi scheme, and if he doesn't pay up, could face more jail time. Here's Amanda Miller with that story. It's an anonymous hotline offering you the opportunity to report crime confidentially. However, the police say no one is using it. We're talking about Crime Stoppers, as the Royal Turks and Caicos Police Force says residents are still not reporting criminal activity. Off the top tonight, disturbing news coming out of a South Dock community. Family members in mourning and residents in shock after a 4-year-old toddler fatally shoots himself. Well, today police say one man is assisting in their investigations, but as Tamara Delaney investigates in this next story, will there be charges for family members who were in the home when the shooting occurred? And why was that gun accessible to a toddler in the first place? A lot of questions surrounding that shooting. Tamara? Well, with the recent increase in gun-related crimes, more residents are calling for a gun amnesty. But according to Premier Honorable Rufus Ewing, a gun amnesty may not be the best or most effective option for the Turks and Caicos Islands.